Hey guys, and what is up? Welcome back to another episode of Football Discussions. Today we're going to be going over the 2019 NFL Fantasy Sleepers and Busts. I went through each team and picked a player that I think is going to be a sleeper this year or is going to be a bust. So without further ado, let's get right into it. For the Denver Broncos, I picked DeSean Hamilton from Penn State, really good athlete. And I think he's just going to fill a role really well in Denver this year. No more Demaryius Thomas over there. Obviously, Emmanuel Sanders is going to be the number one guy, followed up by a really nice player, Courtland Sutton. But I feel like Sutton's going to get a lot of attention this year and is not going to get as many targets. So I think DeSean Hamilton will actually get the majority of the targets out of that pair, Courtland and Hamilton, and will really come into his own this year. He only had 30 receptions last year and 2 touchdowns, but I really expect all those numbers to go up. So definitely consider taking DeSean Hamilton for your flex or even a bench role player. For the Los Angeles Chargers, I chose Austin Ekeler, another sleeper here. I think he has a lot of talent. And of course, there are the speculating rumors whether his teammate Melvin Gordon is going to be on the team this year, is even going to play this year. So I think that all these factors combined is why that Ekeler is just going to get a lot of touches. Not to mention he's a great receiving back, so in a PPR league he should really shine. So definitely consider picking up Ekeler this year. Over in Oakland, soon to be Las Vegas, I went with Tyrell Williams. Simple reason is that Derek Carr is not a good quarterback, and when he's going to throw the ball, he's just going to target load Antonio Brown. So I really don't see Williams getting that many targets this year. He'll probably have like a 56 catch season, really not that many, especially not for PPR. And I think that he won't even get targeted in the red zone that much. So just really would stay away from Tyrell Williams this year. In Kansas City, I went with Damian Williams, former Miami Dolphin, now a Kansas City Chief, and he really is going to be that number one back over there in Kansas City, which should be interesting to see how that plays out. But we'll see. And the thing about him is he's just a really good receiving back. So, like I said about Austin Ekeler, he's just going to be really good in a PPR league, gets a ton of receptions out of the backfield, and Kansas City loves running screen plays. So in a short time there last year, he had 23 receptions. So that should just show you how much he's going to get the ball. And like I said, now that Kareem Hunt's gone, I think he'll fill that void. So definitely consider picking up Williams this year. For the Rams, I would try to stay away from Todd Gurley this year. Simple fact is he's injury prone. He's already struggling with knee issues in the offseason, into minicamp, in training camp, and I'm sure they'll continue throughout preseason. So I don't expect to see much of him in preseason. And I think his touches are just really gonna decrease this year. They did bring in Darrell Henderson, running back from Memphis, in the draft. So I just wouldn't expect Todd Gurley to be nearly as productive as he was last year. He's still a great football player, but just the injuries are just something that scares me. So definitely don't go for Todd Gurley in the first round. If he's available in the second round, sure, take him. But if you're spending a first round pick on him, that's a little risky. For the Arizona Cardinals, I went with Christian Kirk, another sleeper. Really good talent here. I like him a lot. He's out of Texas A&M and now paired up with his former teammate Kyler Murray, because Kyler Murray actually in his freshman year played at Texas A&M before transferring to Oklahoma. So I think that Kirk is going to get a lot of receptions this year. He had 43 in a trash offensive system last year, and I think those numbers will only skyrocket this year in Kingsbury's system. So just really definitely a wide receiver 2 option if you need one. So I would pick Kirk if it's possible. For the Seattle Seahawks, I went with Tyler Lockett, another really good player last year. Even in fantasy, he showed flashes of greatness. I had him on my team last year. I really liked him. He was a rotating flex for me. So just really consider getting him this year. Just a ton of talent, and I think that Wilson will pass on the ball even more this year now that Doug Baldwin's gone. So Tyler Lockett, really smart to pick him up. In San Francisco, I couldn't focus on one player to be a sleeper, so I went with a 3 bust trio here, and that's just the running backs in San Francisco. It's just not reliable to pick one of these guys and rely on them to be your starter when all three of them are very good football players and all three of them getting touches, them being Matthew Breida, Tevin Coleman, and Jerick McKinnon. I think all of them will get the ball every game, so it's just such a crowded backfield, and if possible, I would try to stay away. For the Houston Texans, I went with Keke Coutee. He's really just going to fill that slot role over in Houston now that he is fully healthy, alongside Will Fuller and DeAndre Hopkins. I think DeSean will really favor targeting him because as much as people love Deshaun Watson, you can't deny that the arm strength really isn't all that impressive. So the slot role is just perfect routes for Deshaun to throw. So I think Coutee will get targeted a lot more than people think this year. So definitely a flex position, or kind of like Hamilton, maybe if you want to have a rotating flex, just that star on your bench that you want to have. So I would target Keke in like the 6th or 7th rounds. For the Titans, he's like a bust every year, but Corey Davis, I know a lot of people want to pick him this year because he did show some potential last year, but I just don't think it's going to be all there now that they have rookie A.J. Brown, and I feel like they brought in some other talent, but I'm blanking on them right now. So I just really think that Corey Davis, his targets will go down this year, and he just has not been what the Titans want him to be and not been what fantasy owners want him to be. So just stay away from Corey. Over in Indianapolis, a bust that I chose was Marlon Mack. I was debating between Ebron and Mack, but a lot of people are saying Ebron's going to be a bust this year just because his touchdown percentage in the red zone was insane last year, and that's just bound to decrease. And not to mention they got another red zone threat, Devin Funchess, in free agency. So, but I think Ebron's going to be good. I think he'll still get receptions. So I would stay away from Marlon Mack this year because I think the Colts offenses and Frank Reich is just going to make it more about the passing game. And when it comes to receiving backs, I think the Colts have a stud in Nyheim Hines. So I think he's just going to get the majority of catches in PPR leagues, and I think they'll seriously split carries back there. So I would stay away from Marlon Mack. Another bust that I had was Leonard Fournette. Injury prone, his yards per carry is just so low even when he is healthy. And I know, like, I get it. If the Jags get down to the 5-yard line, it's a guaranteed touchdown for Leonard Fournette. Don't get me wrong, but it's just so hard to tell with the running backs these days because the first year they come in the league, they just get handed the ball so much and they get ran right into the ground from the start of their careers. And so I just don't see Fournette being all there for the rest of his career, living up to his rookie season numbers. Over in New Orleans, I went with Traquan Smith. He should really pop off this year. Michael Thomas will be getting the defense's attention more than anyone else in that Saints passing offense, not to mention defenses have to worry about Kamara. So oftentimes you'll see a nickelback or the linebacker who's supposed to be covering the slot actually targeting Kamara, which will leave Traquan Smith in plays where he has linebackers on him. So he should just get a lot of touches, and I think that he'll have a good successful season over in New Orleans. For the Panthers, I went with Curtis Samuel, another guy who's just a really good football player, and I think if Cam Newton is healthy, he'll really come into his own this year. He had a solid season last year. His targets went up, his catches went up, especially towards the end of the year. He started to pop off, although he was dealing with an injured starting quarterback, so that's probably why his numbers weren't as high as expected. But he really is a deep threat, and I think that if you're in the 8th round and you're looking for that flex or a bench rotational player, I think he's a good guy to have at the start of the season, and then by mid-season, I'm sure you'll be starting him. So that's my pick for the Panthers. For the Buccaneers, I chose Peyton Barber. Peyton really has never lived up to his career up to his potential after coming out of Auburn. He had a really good time at Auburn, but I just don't think that he'll ever be a great NFL running back. I don't think he's ever had over like a 500-yard season, so just stay away from him. I know he's going to be tempting because he's technically the starter over there in Tampa Bay, but seriously, I just don't think he'll have a great year. It's weird putting Devontae Freeman as a sleeper, but I feel like a lot of people are forgetting about him. after his injury wrecked season last year. So if he's available in that third round, definitely take this guy. With Tevin Coleman gone, I think he's only just going to get so many more touches and just really shine. And I know they have Ito Smith over there in Atlanta, but I think he'll really assume that role that he had a couple of years ago in that Falcons Super Bowl run and just be dominant again. For the New England Patriots, I chose James White. I just don't see James getting nearly the amount of targets he got. It's another credit backfield like San Francisco, where you have a guy like Rex Burkhead, who's also a good receiving back. And, of course, they drafted Sony Michel in 2018. So I just really think that White's value is going to seriously decrease and his targets will decrease. So I would stay away from him. For the Miami Dolphins, I went with Kenny Stills. I think he's going to be a bust this year. He's never really lived into his own. The potential hasn't been unlocked just yet. Maybe in a new system with Fitzpatrick or Rosen throwing him the ball, he'll succeed, but I just don't see it happening. His talent is being wasted in Miami, I feel like, and I just don't think he'll get the ball a lot this year. I don't think Miami will pass it to him, and it's a crowded wide receiver room over there. You have guys like Devontae Parker, and they just brought in Allen Hurns, so I would just stay away from Kenny. In New York, I went with Chris Herndon, the tight end. He was a rookie last year, showed a lot of good skills, and I think he's going to be kind of like a Ebron type guy, just a huge red zone threat, and he's a good route runner. So I think he has all the skills needed to be a great fantasy tight end. For the Buffalo Bills, I went with Zaid Jones, another really good wide receiver. We saw his deep threat ability a couple of times when Josh Allen was going down there. So I think that Zaid Jones will just get more targets this year as that Bills offense got a little better in the offseason, and I think that he'll just shine this year. For the Giants, I went with another tight end over in New York, Evan Engram, a really good player. Basically a wide receiver. He's got to be the fastest tight end in the NFL. And since the wide receiver core over there in New York is so torn apart, Golden Tate's out for the first 4 games. Sterling Shepard has a broken thumb. It's just going to be hard for this. And Corey Coleman just tore his ACL, I believe it was. So it's just going to be hard for this team not to target Evan Engram so much this year. So I would definitely pick him up. Over in Washington, the tight end that was so good a couple of seasons ago for a stretch there, Jordan Reed, I just don't think he's going to be all there this season. And I just don't think the targets will be there from Haskins. I think Haskins is going to be looking more towards wide receivers. So, and Reed's been injury prone for the past few seasons. So I know his name's tempting, but I would stay away. Over in Dallas, I went with Michael Gallup. Obviously, Amari Cooper came into his own last year, but the rookie Gallup last year had a lot of good plays, and I think that Dak is really going to find it tempting to throw to him even more this year. So I think his catches will go up, and his touchdowns will go up, and his yardage will go up. So definitely target this guy in like the 7th or 8th round. Over in Philadelphia, I went with Alshon Jeffery. This guy is going to be a bust. He's just never been the same since he was in Chicago, I feel like. And I don't see him playing all that well. I don't think Wentz is going to be all there this year. I know a lot of people think he's going to have his comeback season, but I just don't see it happening. I think he's once people tear their ACLs, they'll never be the same. So I just really don't see Alshon Jeffery getting a lot of targets or getting a lot of touchdowns or yardage. So I would stay away from him. Same thing with Jarvis Landry here. The reason why Jarvis had some good games last year and the catches were there was because he was target overloaded. I think Baker threw it to him the majority of the time. He dropped back, and Jarvis had an insanely low catch percentage. I think it was in the 50s, which is just so bad. So I think that now that Odell's over there, his targets will go even more down, and I know the teams will be focusing on Odell, and he'll get that double team. But I think that's just going to enable the other wide receiver in Cleveland, Antonio Callaway, to just excel even more. So I think that if you're thinking Jarvis, I just really wouldn't. In Baltimore, we went with Lamar Jackson. And it's hard for me to pick a quarterback as a sleeper, but I just think a lot of people are saying, oh, this kid's a running back, he can't throw. From what I've heard, he's been working very hard this offseason on his game, on his craft, and I think he's gotten even better as a thrower, but the running is still there, and that's why he's going to be so productive in fantasy. I think most leagues, whether it's PPR or standard, a passing touchdown is worth 4, while a rushing touchdown is worth 6. So if you find Lamar Jackson getting touchdowns off the run game, it's even better. And the yardage is more points in the run game as well. So I just think that Lamar Jackson is going to be a really good fantasy player this year. In Pittsburgh, I went with Ryan Switzer. It was either Eli Rogers or him, and I think that Ryan Switzer is just going to get more targets from Ben. From what I've heard in training camp, he's really playing well. And now that AB's gone, Juju's the number 1 guy there. So although Juju is going to have a great year, in my mind, I think that Eli and Ryan Switzer are both going to get more targets and get more ability to get into the end zone. But I went with Switzer. I think he's a really good, solid flex player, a rotational flex. So I would definitely consider picking him up. For the Bengals, we went with John Ross. Sorry, I don't know what happened there. A player that really has not come into his own. Everyone was shocked when he ran that. What was it, like a 4-2 or no, like a 4-4 flat maybe it was, but he was one of the fastest players ever in NFL history at the 40-yard dash, but he's just never come into his own, and I just think that he won't succeed as an NFL player ever. So I know he's tempting, but stay away. In Minnesota, we went with Adam Thielen. Look, I know Thielen had an insane season last year, and I think he'll have an okay season this year, but don't pick him in the first round or second round. I just don't think he'll be nearly as productive as he was last year. I know Diggs is just going to get more targets in general. They brought in Irv Smith, who's a great tight end out of Alabama, and Kyle Rudolph is always going to be consistent. So Cousins has a lot of players to throw it to, so I would just not take Thielen in the first, second round because that's just a waste of a pick. In Chicago, we went with Allen Robinson, a player that I don't know. He on Jacksonville he was really good, but he had some flashes. I think he had one 28-point game in a PPR league, but I just don't think he'll be that good this year. There's a lot of young guys in that wide receiver room. They drafted Riley Ridley, Calvin Ridley's little brother this year, and they also have, I think it's Anthony Miller, who's a really good wide receiver, not to mention the vet Taylor Gabriel over there. So I just think that Robinson's targets aren't going to be there this year, and he's never really been a red zone threat in his career. So I would just stay away from Robinson. A lot of people are saying Kerryon's going to be a bust this year, but I would still pick him. I think he's just going to be really good in Detroit, and he has so much potential. I think he averaged around 16 points a game last year, which is really good for RB2. So if you're thinking about picking him this year, I would definitely not second-guess yourself. I think the Lions' offense is going to rely on the run game even more, so I think Kerryon's just going to get more touches and just really succeed this year. In Green Bay, we went with Geronimo Allison. Green Bay's wide receiver core has really fallen apart ever since Jordy Nelson left, and Randall Cobb is now shipped out. Obviously, they have one of the top wide receivers in the league in Devontae Adams, but other than that, it's really empty. Even the tight end situation is awful with Jimmy Graham. So I think Allison is just really going to emerge this year. So if you're thinking about a flex or a rotational flex or even a wide receiver too, I think Allison's good enough to be there. So definitely consider picking him. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like. If you want to see more content, please subscribe. That was my fantasy sleepers and busts. We'll see you guys next time.